4x4 3-inch lift and level suspension lift kit is one of the easiest ways to add additional capability and style to your 2024 or newer Toyota Tacoma with rear coil springs. Now, 3 inches of lift in the front opens up a lot of opportunity for your Tacoma, including a more dominant look to the truck, better ability to scale obstacles off-road, and of course fitting in a larger tire in the wheel well. Now, this is a very simple kit that just comes with a few spacers, being great if you want the benefits that I mentioned for daily driving and light off-roading without the need to swap out suspension components that may change the ride or require additional work. Now, this kit both lifts and levels the truck as it says in the name. So the front gets 3 inches of lift that comes from this top strut spacer as well as a preload spacer, and then in the back it is raised an inch. So overall you're increasing your ground clearance and getting rid of the factory rake with the offset of those 2 inches in the front compared to the rear. Now, that correction in the front offers a much more aggressive appearance, and you can further that with the addition of up to a 33-inch tire in the wheel well with no modifications needed in order to fit them. Now, because this is a spacer lift, this doesn't drastically change your ride quality since you are still working with the factory components. However, because of the large change in suspension geometry, you may feel a slight difference up front. Now, to help that feel and to get the best performance from this kit and your Tacoma in general, I would recommend a set of upper control arms to pair with this kit, and we have a ton of options available on our site in order to do so. Now, all of these spacers here, they're made from a steel or aluminum material, durable and typical for suspension components like this because of the resilience that they offer. Now, they're all covered in a black powder coat for protection against rust and corrosion, especially if you live in a tougher climate. Now, I do want to mention that the actual measurements of the spacers are a bit different from the actual lift size. Now, the rear spacer is on a solid axle, so this is true to a 1-inch measurement, but the preload spacer and front spacer here are roughly 3/4 of an inch for that top strut spacer and roughly 1 1/8 inch for this preload spacer. Now, because of how an independent front suspension works, the suspension geometry and the spring compression with the addition of these two spacers is going to achieve that 3-inch lift in the front. This kit also comes with the necessary studs for the strut spacer, pre-pressed and pre-installed, and all the necessary hardware for the job for a straightforward install. This kit is roughly $375, which is a very affordable 3-inch lift solution compared to others in the category. Now, as I said, this keeps it very simple when it comes to what's included if you don't want to dig into your suspension and change components, and you just want a better look and a lighter performance choice compared to a full kit. Now, if you don't want to break the bank and you aren't doing any serious off-roading that would warrant a high performance option, but you still want a decent amount of height to the front for your Tacoma, this is a great option to choose. Install here is a 3 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, and although this is a direct bolt-on installation with no major modifications required, it does require a spring compressor for the job because you are adding the addition of this preload spacer here. Now, with the right tools and setup, it should be about 3 hours or so in order to accomplish it, and it is recommended to get an alignment after the install for proper tire wear and proper performance. Now, at this point, I'm going to hand you over to one of our installers. They're going to show you a breakdown of this install step by step, so that wraps it up for what I have to say. Let's go ahead and jump into it.
For this install, you will need a breaker bar, a pry bar, various impacts, various ratchets, 6mm Allen socket, 12, 14, 17, 19, 22, and 24mm sockets, a 5/16 wrench, 14, 15, and 19mm ratchet wrench, also 17mm, 22 and 24mm wrenches, a cutting tool, a whiz wheel, a tape measure, a paint pen or marker, a soft blow mallet, and also not shown here is a spring compressor and a couple pole jacks or jack and jack stands. What's up, guys? Today we're going to be installing a lift kit on our Tacoma, so let's get started. Alrighty folks, so we've got the truck in the air, we've got the wheels off. The first thing we're going to do is, because we need to remove our front struts, we're going to loosen up our upper strut nuts first. It's going to make things a little bit easier. So we've got a 14mm ratchet wrench with a pivoting head. Head is preferred. We'll loosen up all 4 nuts. We're not going to fully remove them just yet. We're just going to get them loose. We'll back those off so they have a few threads still on. Back ones are a little tight to get to, but you can get to them. Be careful of any of your lines or anything while you're back there. This last one as well. So our next step is going to be to unbolt our sway bar end link from the lower control arm. So we've got a 19mm socket on the impact, we've got a 19mm wrench. Now that nut on the backside does stay, it is welded on, but putting a wrench on it just kind of secures it a little bit better. Pull this bolt out. Now our sway bar end link is free from the lower control arm. Now we're going to remove our lower strut mounting bolt with our 22mm wrench and a 22mm socket on our impact. Get that nut out of the way. Now we'll remove our bolt. Might need to push up just a hair on your lower control arm. Now your strut's free. Next we're going to remove our lower control arm mounting bolts. Now we're going to mark our alignment points on these first. That'll get you close to stock when you put it back in. However, you will need an alignment after installing this kit. So we're going to take a paint marker, mark everything so we can get them back in the proper spot. You want to do that for all 4 of your cams. And just go on a reference, like there is a little dowel straight down, keep that. And this one's going to be straight up. Now to remove these, we've got a 24mm socket on our breaker bar for our nut on the backside and a 24mm wrench to hold our cam bolt. Once you got that loose, switch out to our ratchet. We'll remove our nut and our inner cam. You want to keep these oriented with where they go when you bring them out, just to make sure your alignment is properly back in spec. Again, you will need an alignment, but just keep that close. We'll do the same thing for our forward bolt. Now we're going to remove our cam bolts. So we do have a pole jack underneath our control arms, just going to make things a little bit easier. Now, one thing you might run into is not being able to get your rear cam bolt out because of the sway bar mounting bracket itself. So what we're going to do is grab our 19mm socket and remove the sway bar bracket. So we have those 2 bolts out. Remove the cover. And we can slide the rubber boot. And once you have this side out, you can do the same thing for the other side. And we're going to remove our sway bar itself. Now once you have both brackets off, obviously these rubber pieces do move, so you can get that out of the way. It should drop down enough for you to be able to remove that bolt. Now we'll remove our front cam bolt. Next, what we're going to do is just loosely reattach our sway bar. This will just hold it in place so we don't have to pull the entire thing out. Just get these bolts in a little bit. Okay. Now we're going to grab our pry bar and get our lower control arm mounting bushings moving. Just want to get them going. Lower our pole jack. You just want to get this down far enough to where we'll be able to remove the strut. The pole jack is good to have under here so you don't put excess tension on your lower ball joint. Now our strut's free, we'll go back up and fully remove those nuts and get our strut out. So now we'll support our strut, get our nuts out. Lower our control arm down if you need to. Now you might have to swing your knuckle out of the way a little bit. Now once you have this side out, you can do the same thing for the other side. All right, so now that we have our strut out, we've got it up on the table because we're going to need to trim down our factory mounting studs up top. So what we're going to do first is take our mounting nuts. We're going to run those all the way onto our studs. This is going to help protect your threads for when we trim them. Once you've got those on, I'm going to take your tape measure, You're gonna mark out 3/8 of an inch down from the top. We've got our paint marker. Come in. We're gonna mark all 4 of those that way, and then we'll trim off these with our cutting wheel once we have them all marked. Now that we have all of our studs marked, we're gonna grab our cutting wheel and trim these down. And once you have the first one trimmed, you can repeat the same process for the other 3. You also want to make sure you're wearing safety glasses while you're cutting. Now that you've got all your studs trimmed, it's always a good idea to take a flap wheel and clean up the top of the remainder of the studs. Now we're going to back our factory nuts off with a 14mm socket on our impact. That's going to help clean up the end of those studs with the threads. They should come out pretty smooth, but this will just ensure everything's good. Now once you've got this strut trimmed down, you can do the same thing for the other side. Alright guys, so now we're going to install our top hat spacer. So we have a forward indicator to the outside of the vehicle on this one as well. And you'll notice on the factory one we do. So what we're going to do is basically line that up like so. Then we're going to turn it to the left just a hair so that these mounting holes line up with our factory studs, like so. So then once we turn this straight with our new spacer, it's going to line up right where the factory mounting point was. Next we can reinstall our factory nuts. Once we have those on, we'll tighten those down again with our 14mm socket. And at this point, you just want to double check that these studs are below flush with your new top hat spacer, which ours are. Then you want to torque your factory nuts down to the manufacturer recommended specification. Alright guys, so now we've got our strut and our spring compressor. We have the base held by the bottom post, and we're going to compress the spring enough to get our top hat off so we can install our top spacer. We're going to compress this down. Just need enough to be able to relieve the tension on the top. Once you've got that compressed, you can grab a 19mm socket with a swivel and an extension. Now that we have the spring on our strut compressed, there's one thing you want to make sure you do is mark the top coil so that it lines up with one of your factory studs. That way you can realign this once it's off. Now we already have ours marked, as you can see. We've got a 19mm ratchet wrench, and we're going to loosen up the top hat nut. So now that we've got our strut compressed, you want to make sure that you do mark the top coil to line up with the front forward factory stud. Now we've got a 19mm ratchet wrench and a 5/16 wrench to hold our strut stud. Crack this loose. Get our nut fully removed. We can decompress our strut. I'll remove our strut from the compressor. Remove our top hat and sleeve. Next we're going to remove our isolator from our top hat. Once we have that off, we'll install our spacer onto our top hat with the recess down. We're going to have our logo facing forward as per instructions. Then we can reinstall our isolator into our spacer. Now we can reinstall our top hat. And we'll set this back in the compressor and get it all lined up. So now we've got everything lined back up and we're back in the compressor. We're going to compress this back down and reinstall our top hat mounting nut. Make sure you keep this in line while you're doing it. Now we've got our strut compressed back down, we're going to reinstall our top hat nut. You just want to double check and make sure everything's lined up. Then we'll tighten that back down. Again with our 19mm ratchet wrench and our 5/16 wrench. Again, you just want to do a final check on your alignment, and we can release Pressure. And our strut is now good. Now once you've got this side done, you can repeat the same process for the other side. Alrighty guys, so now that we've got our strut all set up, we can begin going back into the vehicle with it. So we're going to send it back up through the same way it came out. And we'll loosely install our strut nuts. So we'll get our upper mounting point back in. And you may have to move your knuckle around a little bit. So we got that through. Get a couple of our upper mounting nuts on. Now we'll get our other two on, and we just have to put them on loosely for now. Okay. Now we're gonna get our lower strut mount back into the lower control arm. You may have to pull down a little bit on your lower control arm and your knuckle. And get that back into position like so. Then we'll bring our lower control arm back up and get our bolts back through. We'll get this line back up. To bring back our pry bar to help get this in line. Once again, you'll have to drop your sway bar back down. Get this through. We may need to use that pole jack to get it up into position. Now we've got our pole jack helping us push that up. We'll get the other side in. So now we can get our cams and nuts on the opposite side of our bolts. And we'll get our sway bar bracket back in. Then you can do the same thing for the other side. And we'll tighten our sway bar bracket back down, again with our 19mm socket. And then you can do the same thing for the other side. Now we're going to tighten up our lower control arm bolts. Now the cams on these, on the front and back of each bolt, are in a slotted bolt, so they will match each other. So as long as you line one up, the other one should line up with it. You want to make sure to double check that though. So we've got our 24mm wrench. Bring that over back to our marked position. We've got our 24mm socket. Good. Then we'll do the same thing for our front bolt. Now we're going to get our lower strut mounting bolt back in place. Now we do have a pry bar hooked on top of the upper control arm to the spring. That's going to give us a little leverage to bring that down. You may need to move your strut mount over a little. And work your bolt back in. Now we've got our bolt most of the way through. It's under a little bit of tension, so we're going to take a soft blow mallet and just gently tap this through. Okay, then we can reinstall our factory nut on the back side. Now we can grab our 22mm socket on our impact and our 22mm wrench and tighten this down. Now once you have both sides up to this point, we can reattach our sway bar end links. You'll have to bring that down to line it back up. Then you can reinstall that 19mm bolt. Get that started on the nut. We'll grab our 19mm socket and tighten that back down. Now lastly, we can tighten down our upper strut mounting nuts with our 15mm ratchet wrench. Once you've got this side done, you can do the same thing for the other side. And always remember to torque your hardware down to the manufacturer recommended specifications. Alright guys, so now we're moving on to the rear, and there's a few things we have to unbolt to get this to drop down so we can remove our factory springs. So what we're going to do first is remove a couple of ABS line brackets, one of which is on the frame, the other is on the top of our differential. And then there are two, one on each side of our differential as well. All those we're going to use our 12mm socket on our ratchet to get off. We'll get the one on the frame off first. Next, we'll get the one at the top of our differential. Next will be the brackets at each side of our differential. And we'll do the same thing for the other side. Next, we're going to use our 19mm socket to loosen up our panhard bar bolts. Now, we're not going to fully remove them, we just want to loosen them up. Now, we also have a couple pole jacks under our differential. You want to make sure you have your differential supported. Then we're also going to loosen up our lower control arm bolts, again with our 19mm socket. We'll loosen this side. Now, these bolts are pretty tight, so you may need a breaker bar for these. We're going to get our larger impact on this. And if the nut comes off, that's fine. You just don't want to remove the bolt. Just get that back on there, and we'll do the same thing on the other side. We're also going to do the same thing for our forward mounting bolts. And just enough to start shifting, that'll be loose enough, and we'll do the same thing on the other side. Next, we can remove our lower shock mounting bolts with our 17mm socket. Now we're going to use a pry bar to get our shock off of the mounting point. And we can do the same thing for the other side. Next, we can disconnect our sway bar end link from our frame. So we've got our 17mm socket. Loosen this up. We need to put a little pressure on it. Now, if you run into issues getting this nut off, you can use a 17mm ratchet wrench to hold the nut and a 6mm Allen socket to fit in the stud and run it out that way. Pop your sway bar end link out of the bracket. Then you can do the same thing for the other side. Now we're going to lower our differential down to allow our springs to come out of their perches. You want to lift up and over the bottom perch. You may have to lower your differential a little bit more. Bring your spring out and remove your top isolator and do the same thing for the other side. So now we're going to take our top isolator and we're going to grab our spacer, and the notched side is going to go up. Isolator is going to go onto the flat side. We're going to grab our spring and line that mark of our top coil back up. We're going to get our spring back in. We'll fish this back in here. Line that top isolator up. Watch your hands as you do this. Line your bottom coil back up. We'll line our top isolator and spacer up. Make sure that seats back into its original spot. And you can do the same thing for the other side. Now we're going to raise our differential back up. Now you don't want to go too far with this, but we do want to go far enough that we can get our sway bar end links back in place. Our shocks are clear, not interfering with it going back up, and we'll check to see where our end links are. Now we've got our differential raised back up enough to get our end link back in. Get that back through, reinstall our nut. Again, we may have to use our ratchet wrench and our 6mm Allen socket. And you can do the same thing for the other side. Now we're going to go around and tighten back up our lower control arm mounting bolts as well as our panhard bar mounting bolts. Now we're not going to torque them down to spec just yet, but we are going to tighten them. So we've got our 19mm socket on our impact. Tighten these up. Once you've got this side tightened up, you can do the same thing for the other side. Now we'll reinstall our bolt for our ABS bracket to our frame. Put it back on, take our 12mm socket, tighten that back down. Now we'll get the bracket for our upper differential ABS line back in. This one's going to be a little bit tougher to line up. Next will be these outer brackets. And you can do the same thing for the other side. So now once we've reached this point, we're actually going to put the wheels onto the vehicle and get it down on the ground. We're going to use the weight of the vehicle itself to line up our bottom shock mounting bolts. It's a lot safer that way. Instead of trying to push up on the springs and the differential while it's on the lift, it can lift the back of the vehicle off of the lift posts themselves. You definitely don't want that. So I'm gonna get the wheels on, get it on the ground, get these back in, and then we can torque everything down to the manufacturer recommended specs. All right, so now we've got the truck lowered enough to get the shock lined up. And we're gonna take a soft mallet, tap this back onto the mounting stud. So get that back on flush. Reinstall our 17mm bolt. Tighten this back down with our 17mm socket. Then you can do the same thing for the other side. And then you can come back and torque all your hardware to the manufacturer recommended specs. Alrighty folks, that about wraps up our review and install of our Ironman 4x4 3-inch lift and level suspension lift kit for your 24 current Tacoma with rear coil springs. Thanks for watching, and as always, for everything Tacoma, keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.